The British attempts to enter the Group B challenge also ended in tears, although the Ford RS 200 and the Metro 6R4 might well have done a lot better with more development time available. As it was, these latecomers to Group B really only got started as the category was about to be banned. The 6R4 was based on the silhouette of the little MG Metro saloon, though you'd need a pretty good imagination and an eye for detail to see much of a resemblance. The original prototype of the car was actually built without the eye-catching wings and front air dam, but it soon became obvious that the 6R4 would be unmanageable at speed without them, and they were designed into the specification. All 200 cars built for homologation, whether the 430 horsepower International class contenders or the 300 horsepower Clubman models, were fitted with the wings. Another very different approach taken by Austin Rover for the 6R4 was in the choice of engine. It was decided to use a beefy 3-litre fuel-injected V6, rather than the small turbocharged 4-cylinder as favoured by Peugeot, Renault and Lancia. The theory was that the fuller torque of the bigger unit would make the car more manageable on rally stages than the high-revving little turbos. Austin Rover were sadly mistaken and gravely underestimated the engineering capabilities of the French and the Italians. The wings were an innovation which worked, but the choice of a non-turbocharged engine was, quite simply, a mistake. Not that the engine was a bad one. It had its early teething problems, like throwing off cam drive belts, but they were easily sorted out in later development. In fact, the same engine was taken over by TWR, who used it to develop an endurance sports car racing power unit capable of winning in both World Championship competition and the prestigious IMSA Sports Car Series in America. In both cases, it was badged as a Jaguar, and amazingly, it went on to be further developed by TWR into the twin-turbo engine which powered the Jaguar XJ220. Had Group B not been banned, it's quite feasible that Austin Rover could have turbocharged the 6R4 engine and turned it into a 600 horsepower plus powerhouse to match the Lancias, Peugeots and Audis. But we shall never know. It would be wrong to label the 6R4 a failure, for it was just not on the scene long enough to be developed. Certainly, it did display many faults in its few international events at the end of 1985 and at the start of the 1986 season, but many of these were subsequently ironed out in National Rally Series, where Group B was allowed to carry on, and in Rallycross. It should also be taken into account that Austin Rover never embarked on a full International World Championship program, with all the development that comes with that kind of experience. Finances were always tight at Austin Rover, and the available budgets were spent mainly on contesting the 1986 British Open Series and World and European Championship events either in or within striking distance of the British Isles. The car's finest hour was certainly its international debut on the 1985 RAC Rally, where Tony Pond finished third behind the Lancias of Henry Toivonen and Marco Allen. What hopes that must have given Austin Rover for the future. Less than a year later, Group B was finished as an international category, but the 6R4 was a continuing threat in British Open competition, in the hands of drivers like Jimmy McRae, the father of current superstar Colin, and his almost as gifted younger brother Alistair. Jimmy won the 1986 Ulster Rally, while teammate David Llewellyn won the Manx International that same year. Ultimately, however, they lost out to the more reliable Ford RS 200 of Mark Lovell. Of the two British Group B contenders, it's probable, for a number of reasons, that the Ford RS 200 would have gone on to be the more effective. Firstly, its basic design and execution seemed better than the 6R4, especially in the choice of a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. This unit could put out from 350 horsepower in Clubman's trim to over 600 for international events. The car also proved itself by leading the Acropolis Rally from all of the major teams before retiring with mechanical woes. Again, we shall never know. Generally, however, the Ford seemed more reliable, more predictable, and as fast, if not faster, than its rival from Austin Rover. In the 1986 Shell Oil's British Open Championship, for example, the young Mark Lovell finished in every one of the 6 qualifiers to take the title. By contrast, the more experienced Jimmy McRae and his young teammate David Llewellyn finished only 6 events between them. They won a round each, and Lovell didn't score a single win. But the speed and consistency of the RS200 brought him a well-deserved title as McRae and Llewellyn fell by the wayside. Secondly, Austin Rover were in constant financial trouble at that time, and getting a proper budget to contest the World Championship Series would have been a problem. The team also lacked major successes to tempt big-time sponsorship. Ford, on the other hand, were in a much more stable situation and could point to innumerable rally successes in the 70s when making those all-important sponsor presentations. The RS200 did, in fact, go on to win several European Rallycross championships and was very much the car to beat in that short, sharp shock version of rallying. In fact, 10 years after the disappearance of Group B, and with the millennium fast approaching, the RS200 is still a front-runner in the Rallycross wars. An amusing aside to the 6R4 versus RS200 confrontation is where the two cars were built. Austin Rover's competition department simply ran and developed the cars. Initial design and construction was farmed out to Williams Grand Prix Engineering. Ford, on the other hand, designed and built the prototype RS200 models and further developed and built the factory team cars. Construction of the 200 Clubman races necessary to get the Group B homologation was contracted out to Reliant Engineering in Tamworth, the same company that built the famed, or notorious, Reliant Robin three-wheelers. That's a fact which will probably change a lot of people's opinion about one of Britain's more unusual cars. The Reliant Robin, that is, not the Ford RS200. The final opinion of most experts on the RS200 is that had the class continued, it could have been a real contender in Group B. Certainly, the Ford was a strongly built car, as these crash test shots graphically demonstrate. Notice how the driver and co-driver's area remains intact as the front end crumples. And here's even more graphic proof of the structural integrity of the RS200 chassis. Those first RS200 models were all sturdily built, and even the car which led the Acropolis Rally in the hands of Sweden's fighter pilot turned rally driver Kalle Grundell was reckoned to be underpowered and overweight. The competition debut of the RS200 was on the British Championship Lindisfarne Rally at the end of 1985, and the car won the event. At the time, it was little more than a road car version, weighing in at 1,400 kilograms and having but 400 horsepower. Contrast that with the 1,000 kilograms and 500 horsepower of the Lancia S4 which Toivonen took to victory in the RAC Rally just a month later. The educated opinion on the RS200 is that it would have been a genuine title contender had the company stayed around long enough to enter the lighter, more powerful Evolution version which was under development when the pullout came. Audi, who joined Ford in an early withdrawal from Group B, had already debuted the final evolution of their car in 1985, and what a car it was. The Quattro S1 Sport was an aggressive-looking beast with huge wings and more horsepower than anyone else in the championship. Over 600 horsepower was rumoured to be on tap, and even Walter Röhrl felt that it was probably too much. Considering that he beat the Peugeots at the San Remo Rally in 1985, his opinion should be respected.